Hey everybody, welcome to this Midas Letter Raw end of day for January 10th, 2022. I'm your host James West, and today we're going to start off the conversation with a look at the crypto market. And the reason I want to start with crypto is because crypto's really been taking a beating lately since the uprising in Kazakhstan resulted in the offlining of anywhere from 12 to 16% of Bitcoin's mining hash rate being taken offline as they shut down the internet as of January 5th. And so that's why we saw this huge crash in the crypto price. Looking at the chart here, this is where the internet was taken offline in Kazakhstan, resulting in 12 to 16% of the hash rate of hash power of Bitcoin being taken offline, never mind the rest of them. And so one of the questions I've been seeing a lot is why did the price of Bitcoin and all the cryptos crash if there was a scarcity issue created by this offlining of the hash rate? And the reason for that is less than the concern about the reduction in supply of Bitcoin. More of concern is the underlying a revelation that this problem caused, that the whole crypto universe is susceptible to things like one country taking 12 to 16% of the hash power of the whole system offline. And you know, how trustworthy is a system that claims to be decentralized when, okay, maybe the blockchain upon which the Bitcoin resides is decentralized to some degree, but the power upon which all cryptocurrencies rely for their networks to remain available, functional, and generating supply are not decentralized. They are centralized in the power grids of the countries upon which they rely. So the uprising in Kazakhstan was largely as a result of the rolling blackouts that had plagued much of Kazakhstan, since a great deal of the power that Kazakhstan generates from coal, I would add, was being diverted to the cryptocurrency industry. And so the uprising in part is a direct protest against the mining of cryptocurrency in Kazakhstan, as obviously the people closer to the government are the beneficiaries of selling that power to the crypto mining industry, while the citizens on the other end receive nothing but rolling blackouts in available power. So right now, looking at the trading in crypto, it's now sort of rebounded as the situation has stabilized in Kazakhstan, and so the hash power is coming back online. Though if you look at the intraday volatility here, it has been spectacular. It's basically up to where it opened this morning, and has been down this morning on opening below 40,000. Promptly took off back to 42,000 as news of the stabilization of the situation domestically in Kazakhstan spread. But you can see that it almost broke 40,000 to the downside again around noon, and is now rallying back to 41,500. So that situation remains very volatile. By the way, today, a little later on, I'm going to talk to Francis Létourneau, who's the CEO of Nuran Wireless. They announced last week that they had signed a deal for $30 million, or they'd signed a deal for $15 million in financing from a local bank to underwrite their rollout of their towers in the DRC. And so, interesting interview. I'm going to let Francis do the talking, but that's coming up just a little bit later. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to the crypto list here. All right, so Bitcoin USD now rallying, still down 242 on the day though. Ethereum rallying as well. Basically all the cryptos rallying. Luna, Tether, well, Tether's tied to the US dollar, so there we go. Luna still hasn't reflected the bounce. Chainlink also not quite reflecting the bounce yet. So this is something that I think, we sort of supports our overall position that cryptocurrencies are not currencies. They are speculative synthetic assets. And when something purports to be a currency, the one thing about a currency is it can never, its viability should not be affected by the supply of electricity. And so if the entire global grid were to shut off, US dollars would still be in circulation because there's still paper money out there and people still, that's a currency. So crypto has a long way to go. And, the fact that the mining of Bitcoin causes a portion of any population to suffer a lack of electricity is a fundamental weakness in the entire value proposition, and which arguably will prevent any cryptocurrency from being a de facto currency or a legitimate currency anytime soon. And it's these weaknesses that will compound themselves and ultimately undermine the stability of crypto. I saw an interesting tweet today, I can't remember by whom, but it said following the action in Kazakhstan, the sentiment was that 90% of the surveyed group, and it wasn't clear who the surveyed group was projecting that it was going to zero, and only 8 to 9% were projecting that it was going to 500,000, assuming that the unaccounted for discrepancy was somewhere between 0 and 500,000. So, if anything, the weakness in crypto was just really brought home by that. Copper, the price of copper back on the bull side. Let's go to a full chart here. So this is the trading in copper today since 9:30 this morning. Copper came out of the chute out of Europe substantially lower, rallied a bit to 435 this morning when I first looked at it, but is now sort of weakening here down at still 435. So the commodities are still demonstrating inflationary tendencies is the point of looking at this. Lumber, random length timber, random length lumber futures front month has sold off a bit after peaking out over $1,250 earlier. Not today, that was on the Friday. So a little weakening here, and rightfully so with the U.S. interest rate trending at 178 basis points. It suggests that a higher interest rate obviously implies a weaker housing market, weaker housing starts in the future, and so the pricing of lumber is suffering the dual influences. To the upside is the fact that there's going to be a shortage of timber supply as a result of the flooding, as a result of the reduction in inventory by the flooding and the landslides that followed, and the reduction in inventory caused by wildfires. Now, interesting thing, when a wildfire takes out a forest, the forest generally, trees don't generally burn right through. Typically that wood has a 1-year best before date that starts ticking, where there's a lot of good timber there. So the interesting thing, when a wildfire goes through an area, that timber is all heading to the mill in the next year, assuming flooding and landslides and transportation doesn't strand the timber in sight on wherever it's growing, wherever it was burnt. But so you've got this situation, well, there's going to be a glut of timber as a result of the wildfires heading to the mills, if it can get there. If things like the flooding and the landslides don't cause the timber to not be able to reach the mill. And then you've got, of course, on the demand side, if increased interest rates are going to cause reduction in demand for new housing, and housing starts are going to be paused as a result, well then the price of lumber could theoretically head back to the $500 range in no time if the demand for housing starts to look weak. At this point, there's still only 1 month of inventory of housing in the US on the market. We need 5 months before we see a bear market, and that's still out here. I think that we're going to see that bear market develop in housing in the US, which will catalyze a bear market in housing in places like Canada. And so, the rosy picture that everybody paints for real estate now is not necessarily the same one we're going to be confronted with come spring. The pandemic, now the pandemic factor, we'll call it on markets, is another story. The Omicron virus, because it is so fast moving, so contagious, and ultimately, though, resulting in a lot less deaths. Yes, hospitals are overflowing today, but I mean, if you extrapolate from the trends of the previous variants, the faster moving it is and the less illness it causes, the faster its life cycle tends to diminish. The question becomes, okay, so if Omicron is going to be under control by the end of January as in terms of rising infection rates as a result of everybody having been exposed to it and had it who's going to have it, then does that then clear the stage for a resurgence in Delta and or other variants like this new one they're finding in France that has like 42 variations to the protein? I mean, these are all things that the scientists love to tell us we have no business speculating on as non-scientists. However, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to correlate the outcomes of the rises and falls in coronavirus through the market. I mean, obviously, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just got my booster last week, and so I'm fully supportive of that. And I wear double masks now when I go out, just because there are so many anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers out there. So the question is, to what extent is the pandemic going to be a factor going out into February and March pertaining to markets? So one of the main things that drove up the price of lumber and drove up the price of basically building materials across the board was the fact that people elected to stay home and renovate rather than go out and shop for homes. And so if that's coming to an end, and it's interesting to me, in the United States, there's 133,000 people hospitalized as of yesterday, yet the observation of the masking in places like Florida, Texas, and the Midwestern states especially, everybody's pretending like there's no pandemic to concern themselves with. And so in terms of another variant achieving a critical foothold in the population, as long as there's a significant portion of the population wandering around without masks and not getting vaccinated, then these variants are going to continue to, lean into the market in so many ways. Every single pandemic situation, every single surge in the pandemic, regardless of the variant, causes cancellation of flights because flight crew call in sick because either they've been exposed and they're waiting for a test or they've come down with the virus. The demand for holiday travels and accommodation, cruise ships, hotels, etc., always takes a hit when there's a big resurgence like Omicron, like the Delta variant. And so, whereas the mainstream media is reporting rather, that the end of the pandemic is in sight, I think that a lot of the scientists out there agree that sentiment is a little bit optimistic at this point, and it's foolhardy to try to interpret any data to suggest that there's going to be a slowdown in the pandemic at this point anytime soon. The Spanish flu, which started in 1918, did not actually disappear until 1952, I believe it was, or 47, I can't recall exactly. Now, obviously, vaccination technology and tracing technology and testing technology was nothing like it is here today. And at some point, there's I've seen a real upsurge in use of the word endemic as it pertains to the coronavirus. And people are suggesting that, well, the coronavirus is now endemic to the population. And, there's just, I just have a real hard time with non-scientists drawing these conclusions because how the hell would they know? And to interpret the data and suggest that, the virus has become endemic because we've seen it going on for 3 years now and mutating is silly. The Omicron virus is not the Alpha virus or the Delta virus. They're all sort of different viruses, and neither one has really become endemic at this point. At least that's what the scientists are telling me. So, Bitcoin's still recovering now going into the end of the day on this Monday. Let's go back to the main watch list and take a look at markets generally. It's been a day characterized by weakness, though the weakness is lessening as we head towards the end of the day. So looking at the master watch list here, S&P 500 is only down 30 points now. At one point it was down over 1 percentage point, now less than 0.6. The Dow Jones was down better than almost 1.5%. Now fine, NASDAQ was down 2%, and it's now down 0.1%, 134 points. So 0.86%, sorry. So recovery is underway. Optimism is rising. If we look at the futures down here, NASDAQ futures looking better. The VIX is eased up a bit. It had surged a bit. Let's look at the VIX chart intraday. Okay, well, this is the one-day look. So that's the VIX as of Friday. And we haven't seen the VIX today because we'll see that tomorrow. But the U.S. 10-year, yeah, 177 basis points at this point. Copper still at 435. Gold and silver. Gold looking a little stronger here. Just above 1,800, which, I would have expected gold to perform a lot better against the weakness in Bitcoin and cryptos generally. A lot of market observers dismiss the idea that Bitcoin has become the gold of the crypto generation, but I think that's not a fair assessment. And crypto obviously is replacing gold as the alternative reserve asset haven for the crypto generation. So we're going to see a lot. Going to see a lot more correlation between gold, silver, and crypto in the future. But for now, there it is. There you have it. Now let's take a look at Apple has essentially rallied from its low of 168 this morning, now trending above 170. Amazon 3,200, 1,800, selling off throughout the day, but rallying as of this morning. So off of its low of 31.35. So this is what's driving the indexes back up, is the FAANG stocks as usual. So essentially it looks like tomorrow could be a better day. We'll have to watch the headlines and find out. Now here's Francis to talk to us about Nuran Wireless. Full disclosure, we have an option in Nuran Wireless at $1.70, not in the money yet. We don't get no other payment from them. So it's our reputation we're staking on this company. And I want you to listen carefully to what he has to say, because he thinks the company is undervalued. I think the company is undervalued, and it's not just because we're shareholders. Welcome back, everybody. Francis Létourneau joins me now, CEO of Nuran Wireless Inc. Francis, welcome back.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing in this frosty weather?
Yeah, pretty cold out there. So I'll stay inside working on our business, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Francis, last week, January 6th, your company announced that you had signed an agreement for a $15 million senior credit facility for financing for the Cameroon and DRC projects. Now, so that suggests to me that you've got all the money you need to build everything you plan to on a loan basis. So tell us about the agreement and what that really means in terms of the value for the shareholders in Nuran.
Wow, this we can talk forever about these couple of topics. So actually, the cool thing about that is that the 30 million package financing that we're talking about, there's 15 covered already, but we wouldn't announce 15 million if it was not that almost all of it is secured. So we will follow on with other announcement on that regards. The other thing is that most of it will be done through debt. There might be an equity stake in there, but the equity will come at the African holding level. I'll tell you more about that in a few seconds. But it could come as well with the debt package because we are talking to a third player that might come as debt in a junior position compared to the first two. So bottom line, the announcement is quite the catalyst for the company. It just ticks all boxes of the company. Contracts, execution, financing, execution, revenue. So this is what the company is all about. Now talking about the raising potential equity at the Nuran African level, compared to a publicly listed company, when you are in a in the private domain, you value your company differently. And just based on the current projection of revenue of DRC and Cameroon only, we are above $100 million company valuation just for these two contracts. So if you take these two and you bring an equity player, for example, and if your company is valued at 100K, let's just take 100K as an example, it's a little bit more than that. If you bring 10 million worth of equity in the African holdco, it means 10% of the company. Whereas if you bring 10 million as public equity in Canada, it will be way more than that because we're currently trading with a market valuation at $44 million. So you see that the impact of a bigger raise in the African holdco has a lesser impact on the dilution. And the type of players with whom we are talking to are really global development-oriented type fund. So the equity player, if equity player is, because we have we have 21 people or 21 organizations with whom we are discussing for future debt as well as equity on that one. But when they bring that equity, it will be for lesser valuation compared to this. And we would like to probably bring a little bit more to ignite the South Sudan, ignite all the upcoming ones. So we want to be able to kickstart the project while we are completing all the financing. So sorry to make it a long explanation or a long answer to your question, but I think it deserves more thought. And actually, we'll be coming with a little bit more corporate updates and everything on those aspects, which are extremely important.
Sure. So then Nuran today at current prices has a market cap of 44 million-ish, give or take. And you've got your subsidiaries with the valuation in total using discounted cash flow methodologies of 130 million-ish. And so that strikes me as, with full disclosure and caveated with the idea that we are in the service of Nuran Wireless to communicate these things. And we stand to profit if the share price goes up. I just feel I want to throw that in there to stay on the right side of white with the regulators. But that strikes me as rather an opportunity for investors because at some point the valuation of the public company is going to catch up to the valuations of its subsidiaries, especially once the revenue starts to flow according to the projections.
Exact. Of course, you might see a big ramp up there. At some point, is our valuation today to the level it should be? The answer is no, but yes, sometimes it will match up and go up because we're not including South Sudan in the current $100+ million valuation I told you about, and we will be adding more of those contracts moving forward. So bottom line, we are extremely well positioned. We're executing. We will tick all boxes of ENG investment as well. So you touch a few points about this earlier in published documentation you've done. So we are starting our ESG rating process. So that might bring additional investors. So bottom line, we're on the verge of creating something big with Nuran for our shareholders, James.
Sure. Let's talk about the ESG aspect for a minute. So environmental, social, governance are the three letters of the anagram there. Tell me about each of those sections of an ESG investment that Nuran complies with.
Yeah, so for first environmental, we run on green energy, so solar panel, batteries, all green, carbon footprint, really low carbon footprint energy. We tied it up to the orange objective of lowest carbon footprint. Social, it's all about the social aspect, what we're doing. So we're bringing connectivity for inhabitants for the first time, allowing them to be part of the global economy, be connected to the rest of the world, having access to e-health, e-finance, everything. So this is a major impact that we're having. Governance, of course, anti-bribery, anti-corruption, anti-everything. We comply to everything. And every single contract we have with those oranges or MTN, there's a specific aspect about this. So we tick all boxes according to the discussion we've been having with the different consultant. It should be pretty easy to get a pretty high rating in terms of ESG. And this is highly demanded by the development banks with whom we are talking to at this stage. So we have to have our ESG rating extremely soon there.
Right. So then that's great. So what are the next steps for Nuran in Africa, and what other opportunities are you developing outside of Africa?
So for Africa, of course, it will be execution. We will complete the financing for the 30 million. That could pave the way to have 1,000 sites built in Cameroon and DRC. Just the cash that will be generated from those operations could lead us to complete the build of the 2,000 site of DRC. But because we want to go faster, we will probably bring some more debt in the equation just to run faster and to get more revenue in faster, because the appetite from a development bank's perspective is there. People wants to see us deploying and connecting Africa way faster than what it is. But this is Africa. The next one for us is Latin America, James. So I've been discussing about this. I think we touched a word on those a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. So Latin America is next on. The team are working hard to get connected to the different mobile network operator. We would like to go because it was all about 3G and 4G for Latin America. Still 2G would be basic service, but we need to bring 3G in the equation. So it was FutureCom a couple of months ago. We've connected with some large groups, Claro, Vivo, Telefonica, and so forth. So we're progressing in terms of discussion with them. So we might see LATAM hitting our pipeline sooner than later. We were expecting LATAM for 2023. Now I think that we could probably aim to get something to sign probably in 2022. So fingers crossed on this time. But this is prospective, as you know. So this is next on our list, and of course, deploying, seeing the revenue. And talking about revenue, James, I was just running reports, and we will be reporting on that this week. But the 30 plus site that we have ongoing in Cameroon are doing extremely well. You know that part of the 10-year contract, we have a couple of years where we charge a minimum guaranteed amount. And in our financial model, we were expecting that minimum guaranteed amount for the first few quarters, from 6 to 8 quarters, to have only the minimum guaranteed amount. We have 15 that are overachieving on those numbers. So we will be billing more than the minimum guaranteed amount at this stage. And all of that with a above 35, 36% penetration rate. So we are achieving extremely good numbers in Cameroon. The team is working well on the ground. They're connecting site after site. So this morning we have connected our 34th site, and I think there's 3 probably lined up for today. Going for 37. So everything looks promising from a Cameroonese point of view. DRC, we will get those numbers coming soon. So we will see if we are achieving as good as Cameroon. But just based on what I'm seeing, we might be in a really different position than what we thought of at the beginning when we were thinking about $20,000 per site per year. For Cameroon, we're way above that in terms of projected revenue, just based on the first 3 months of usage, which is great achievement. Our CFO, Jim Bailey, is quite happy because due to the gross margin and EBITDA, it will be a cash generating business.
All right, perfect. Well, that's a great update. Thank you very much, Francis. We'll come back to you in due course. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye for now. So Nuran up 2.8%, almost 3% on the day at $1.45. Still giving it a market cap about 44 million bucks. And with its subsidiary being worth on a discounted cash flow basis, 130 million, as Francis confirmed. Looks like a bit of a buying opportunity there. Just saying. Anyways, that's my show for today. I'm going to try to do one every day going forward here right around the end of market. So stay tuned. They'll usually be about 35, 40 minutes long, maybe an hour if I have a lot of guests, but otherwise I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Have any questions, write me, jwest@midasletter.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.